All right, watering. So we have a little bucket or a little thingy here, little water container, and we have a little area here that when something walks into it, it's going to tell you how much water is in it. So as you can see, when a player walks through it, it says 0 or whatever, and we're going to put the little water container in there. As you can see, there's no water in it. It said 0. So we're going to push the little water container way over here. Eventually, we're going to be able to pick it up. I don't know if you heard that, but we put the little water in the pond, the little water container in the pond, and it made a noise. See, you heard the noise? So now when we kick this back over to the little white area, which is just for testing, to show how much water we have, you're going to notice that there's 100 units of water in there. Easy. So, very simple. I eventually plan on allowing this to be picked up, so you can just kind of like, wee, and then, you know, like plop it in there. But let's go into how it works. So, let me save just to be safe. So, this works because there are these, on dynamic objects, you can set boundaries, which is what this white area is here. And you can set the width and the height and whatever of it, and you can show it. Showing it doesn't actually mean anything. It just means that you can see it. Like if it was off, it's still going to work. So if I hit play and I walk into the area over here, you see it's still going to print 0. It's just means you can't see the actual area. So it works by checking when a water container actually goes into one of these areas. It will add into a water area, which is this specific pointer is a water area. It will add that, you know, it will add water to it, and then this one just reads how much water is in each object. So, let's get onto the script. Here is the game manager. So this is where we're actually declaring all of the advanced variables that we need for this to work. And the two important ones are the two important things here is the declare object list variable. This is basically a list of every single item that we want to have water in. So, if we come over here and look, we're creating an object list with a water container. And as you notice, this is the water container here that we're referencing. So this object here and this, they're the same thing. And we're declaring a global, that's another important thing here. We're declaring a global object list variable called water containers. And then the second thing to make this work is we have declare number variables at the scope object, and it's called water amount. The identifier is called water amount. Now, the object scope is special. So there's a couple different scopes. There's global, which means it's accessible from everywhere. Every script can access it with the correct identifier. Local means that it's only specific to the script brain that you're like in, so it would only objects inside the script brain could access it. And then there's object, which kind of works like how HP works. That will make sense in a moment. So basically, when you declare a number variable in an object scope, every single dynamic object gets that variable assigned to them. So to kind of illustrate this, here is the little debug node, the little debug area that's printing out. Now I'll show you the node for that, the flow for that. So this is the water debug area. And when something enters it, all we're doing is we're getting that object. See, when this object enters, we're getting that object's water amount. And we're just printing it to the kill feed. So what that means is that when any object enters this area, it's going to print a 0 or it's going to print the amount of water it has, which if there's no water in it, it's going to be 0. So if we walk into here, it's going to be 0. And to kind of prove this, if we come back to this game manager script here, and we change the initial value to, like, let's say 7, now when I walk into it as a Spartan, it's going to print 7 instead. Meaning that every single, what this means is that every single dynamic object is going to be able to have a water amount. Which is cool because it actually, this allows you to store data on individual objects, but it's bad because we don't want the Spartan to be able to just carry water with their hands. You know, that's not really like how I want to design this. So we solve that problem by having this object list variable that contains all the water containers. And what we're doing over here in the water area script, this is where everything kind of comes together. is we have the same pointer here like we had before, and if I enable the boundaries, you'll see that, you know, this is where, you know, an object has to enter this area for it to get to water. If we look back at the script, so we're just checking when something enters it, any object enters it. And the other important, I guess the final big important piece is this get objects list variable. We're getting the identifier water containers, scope global, and this water containers variable is the same one we declared over here in the game manager. So we're declaring object list variable identifier water containers. And if we look back over here, we're referencing the same thing. So we're getting all of the objects that we defined over here that are water containers. So this, if we, with how this is set up, that means if we wanted to have another water container, we could just create one here and reference it in the script and drag it in like that. And now we have two items in our world that can hold water. So to get on with the water area. So for each, so what we're doing here is we're looping over every single water container item. It's a little not great, but it's the best solution we have that I thought of, at least. I mean, there's maybe a better way of doing this. So for every object, so we're running this, so it's going to execute per object. So for each object in the list, it's going to execute this branch node. And then this branch node is running a condition saying, is the current object of the loop the same as the object that entered the area? So basically what we're doing is we're checking what this little section here is doing is we're checking, is the item that entered the area actually a valid water container? And if it is true, then we're going to set that object. So follow this node here, this line here. We're going to set that object's water amount to 100. See, it's important that, like I said, the scope object, that's another important thing here to set to make sure that you're actually assigning it to an object. So you set the object scope value to 100 with the right tag, water amount, which again, as I said before, we declared over here in object scope, which means every dynamic object has it. And then once we've set that, what we're doing is we're referencing this audio emitter that is next to the water source. We're playing an audio source. Here we're playing the heavy water splashes. We're waiting 1 second and then we're stopping it. So if you see now, we have two water containers. Let's make sure I actually wired those up correctly. Let's add the second water container just to give you an idea of how this works. Add the second one. So if I push the second water container, oh, it's not physics based. Hold on. So if we change it from physics normal and make you physics normal, should allow me to push you into here, and it should say 0. And then now we push you over into the water. I'm trying to not mix them up. You hear the splashes when this got inside of it. And then we kick it way back over here and check. And it says 100. And now we have this other water container. And you think, okay, well, are they both going to have 100? No, because we only assigned that water amount to that specific object. So if I kick it into there, it says 0. And then obviously when I walk, you know, you'd think also, the Spartan's also a dynamic object. So since we're doing that check to make sure that only objects that are water containers are valid, when I walk into here, you don't hear splashes. Because the Spartan isn't in the list and isn't labeled as a water container object. So now that I've shown that this one's 0, I can kick it over here as well. You hear the water. And then I push it back into the little area. And it also has 100. Quite simple. Very effective. This process of assigning variables to dynamic objects like this is incredibly useful and going to be used absolutely everywhere. This is maybe one of the most important things to understand inside the node graph is how to use these advanced object variables to store and manipulate data. Very important. Hopefully that was reasonably explained and wasn't too rambly, but I guess I'll show the demo one more time.